I earn $40,000 every month. But my son? He thought I was barely surviving. For 35 years I let him believe I was just another office worker. Simple clothes. Small apartment. Nothing special. And I never corrected him. But when he invited me to meet his wife's family at an expensive restaurant, something felt wrong. His voice was nervous, embarrassed. Like he was apologizing for me before I even arrived. So I decided to test them. I dressed in my worst clothes, grabbed a faded bag and walked into that five-star restaurant looking like someone who'd been broken by life. What happened next destroyed my daughter-in-law's family in ways they never imagined. And believe me, they deserved every second of it. Let me take you back to how this all began. Because the woman who walked into that restaurant wasn't who anyone thought she was. Not my son. Not his wife. And definitely not her parents. This is my story of shocking family betrayal, calculated revenge, and one black card that changed everything. My name is Diana, and I've worked for the same multinational corporation for 20 years. I'm a senior executive. I sign million-dollar contracts. I oversee operations across 5 countries. But my son Jordan, he has no idea. To him I'm just mom. The woman who leaves early, comes home tired, cooks whatever's in the fridge. He assumed I was a secretary or something ordinary. And I let him think that. Why? Because I grew up believing that dignity lives inside you, not on your walls. I didn't need trophies. I lived in the same modest apartment for 15 years. Used the same worn handbag. Bought clothes at discount stores. Saved everything, invested everything, and became wealthy in silence. True power doesn't shout. True power observes. And I was observing very closely when Jordan called me that Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded nervous. Mom, I need to ask you something. Natasha's parents are visiting from overseas. They want to meet you. We're having dinner Saturday at a restaurant downtown. Please come. Something in his tone bothered me. It wasn't a son inviting his mother. It was someone asking me not to embarrass him. Do they know anything about me? I asked calmly. Silence. Then he stammered. I told them you work in an office. That you live alone. That you're simple. That you don't have much. There was that word, simple. Like my entire existence could be reduced to one miserable adjective. I took a deep breath. Hey Jordan. I'll be there. I hung up and looked around my apartment. Old furniture. No expensive art. Small TV. Nothing impressive. And right then I made my decision. If my son thought I was poor, if his wife's family was coming ready to judge me, then I would give them exactly what they expected. I would pretend to be broke, desperate, naive. I wanted to see their true faces when they thought I had nothing. Because I suspected something about Natasha's family. I suspected they were the type who measured people by bank accounts. And my instincts never fail. Saturday arrived. I dressed in the worst outfit I owned. A shapeless gray dress from a thrift store, worn-out shoes, no jewelry. I pulled my hair into a messy ponytail and grabbed a faded canvas bag. I looked in the mirror. I looked forgettable. Broken. Perfect. The taxi dropped me at the restaurant. Warm lights, doorman in white gloves, elegant people everywhere. I took a deep breath and walked inside. Jordan was standing by a window table in a dark suit. He looked anxious. Beside him stood Natasha in a cream designer dress with gold accents. She looked flawless, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring toward the entrance with an embarrassed expression. Then I saw them. Natasha's parents, already seated like royalty. Her mother, Victoria, wore an emerald dress covered in sequins, jewels on every finger. Her hair pulled back in an elegant bun. Cold, calculated beauty that intimidates. Her father, Richard, wore a gray suit, expensive watch gleaming on his wrist. Both looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. I walked toward them slowly, timidly, like someone afraid of this place. Jordan saw me first. His eyes widened. He swallowed hard. Mom, he said uncomfortably. You came. Of course, son. Here I am. Natasha gave me a quick, cold kiss on the cheek. Mother-in-law, nice to see you. She introduced me to her parents in an almost apologetic tone. Dad, Mom, this is Jordan's mother. Victoria looked up. Her eyes scanned my wrinkled dress, old shoes, canvas bag. I saw everything in her face. Judgment, disdain, disappointment. She extended a cold, weak hand. A pleasure. Richard did the same. Fake smile. Charmed. I sat at the far end of the table like a second-class guest. No one helped me with my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter arrived with elegant French menus. I opened mine and pretended not to understand anything. Victoria watched me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Do you need help with the menu? Yes, please. I don't know what these words mean. She sighed. Something simple. Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it. The phrase hung in the air like poison. No one said anything, and I just watched. Victoria started talking about their journey, how tiring the flight was, how different everything was here. Then she subtly shifted to money. She mentioned their hotel, $1,000 per night. The luxury car they'd rented. The stores they'd visited. We bought a few things. Nothing major, just a few thousand. She looked at me waiting for me to be impressed. I just nodded. How nice. We've always been careful with money, Victoria continued. We worked hard. Invested well. Now we have properties in 3 countries. Richard has major businesses and I oversee our investments. She smiled with superiority. And you, what exactly do you do? I work in an office, I replied, lowering my gaze. Paperwork, filing. Simple things. Victoria exchanged a look with Richard. Administrative work. That's fine. It's honest. All jobs are dignified, right? Of course, I whispered. The food arrived. Enormous plates with tiny portions decorated like art. This costs $80, Victoria said, cutting her steak. But quality is worth paying for. Jordan tried changing the subject, but Victoria interrupted. Does your mother live alone? Jordan nodded. She has a small apartment. Victoria looked at me with feigned pity. It must be difficult living alone at your age without much support. Does your salary cover everything? I felt the trap closing. I manage. I save where I can. Victoria sighed dramatically. You're so brave. I admire women who struggle alone. Though of course one always wishes to give our children more. But everyone gives what they can. There was the subtle but deadly blow. She was telling me I wasn't enough for my son. Natasha stared at her plate. Jordan clenched his fists under the table. And I just smiled. Victoria continued. We made sure Natasha had the best schools, traveled the world, learned 4 languages. When she married Jordan we helped quite a bit. We gave them money for the house down payment. Paid for their honeymoon. That's who we are. She looked at me intently. Were you able to help Jordan with anything when they married? Not much. A small gift. Victoria smiled. How sweet. Every detail counts. The intention is what's important. Right then I felt the rage begin to stir inside me. Controlled. Like a river under ice. I kept my timid smile and let Victoria keep talking. Because that's what people like her do. They talk. They inflate themselves. They show off. And the more they talk, the more they reveal the emptiness inside. Dessert arrived. Tiny portions that looked like edible art. Victoria ordered the most expensive one. $30 for a piece of cake, she said. It has edible gold on top. Only the best restaurants offer this. I ate my simpler, cheaper dessert in silence. Victoria's expression changed, becoming serious. I think we should talk about something important as a family. Jordan tensed. Mom, I don't think this is the time. Victoria raised her hand. Let me finish. She looked at me. Diana, I understand you did the best you could with Jordan. But now he's married. He has responsibilities. He deserves stability. Stability? I asked softly. Financial and emotional stability. We've helped a lot and will continue helping. But we believe it's important that Jordan doesn't have unnecessary burdens. He was calling me a burden. Natasha stared at her plate. Jordan's jaw was clenched. That's why we wanted to talk to you, Victoria continued. We could help you financially. Give you a small monthly allowance so you can live more comfortably without Jordan worrying so much. She paused dramatically. And in exchange we'd only ask that you respect their space. Don't seek them out so much. Give them freedom to build their life without interference. There was the bribe disguised as charity. They wanted to pay me to disappear from my son's life. Jordan exploded. Mom, that's enough. Victoria interrupted. Marcus, calm down. We're talking like adults. Your mother understands, right? Everyone looked at me. Victoria with expectation. Richard with arrogance. Natasha with shame. Jordan with desperation. I picked up my napkin. Wiped my lips. Let the silence grow. Then I spoke. My voice was different, no longer timid. It was firm, clear, cold. That's an interesting offer, Victoria. Very generous. Victoria smiled victoriously. But I have a few questions, I continued. How much exactly is a modest monthly allowance? Victoria hesitated. We were thinking, maybe $700. I nodded. I see. $700 a month for me to disappear from my son's life. Victoria frowned. I wouldn't put it like that. That is exactly how you put it. The atmosphere shifted. Victoria adjusted in her chair. Diana, I don't want you to misunderstand. How much did you give for the house down payment? I asked. $40,000, Victoria said proudly. And the honeymoon? $15,000. I nodded slowly. So you've invested $55,000 in Jordan and Natasha. How generous. Victoria smiled. When you love your children, you don't hold back. You're absolutely right, I said. When you love your children, you don't hold back. I leaned forward slightly. But tell me something, Victoria. Did all that investment buy you anything? Did it buy you respect? Real love? Or just obedience? Victoria stopped smiling. Excuse me. My tone sharpened. You've spent the entire night talking about money. How much things cost. How much you spent. But you haven't asked once how I am. If I'm happy. If something hurts me. You've only calculated my worth. Apparently, I'm worth $700 a month. Victoria paled. I didn't. Yes, you did. Since I arrived, you've measured my value with your wallet. And you know what I discovered? People who only talk about money are the ones who least understand true value. Richard intervened. I think you're misinterpreting. Am I? I looked at him directly. What are her intentions? To treat me with pity? To humiliate me? To offer alms so I'd vanish? Richard opened his mouth but said nothing. I placed my napkin on the table and leaned back. No more timidity in my posture. Victoria, you said you admire women who struggle alone. Let me ask, have you ever struggled alone? Built something with your own hands without family money? Victoria stammered. I manage our investments. Businesses your husband built. Properties you bought together with money he generated. There's a difference between managing existing wealth and creating it from scratch. Victoria pressed her lips together. I don't know where you're going with this. Let me explain, I replied calmly. 40 years ago I was 23. A secretary earning minimum wage. Living in a rented room. Then I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My family turned their backs. Jordan stared at me. I'd never told him this in such detail. I worked until my last day of pregnancy. Went back 2 weeks after Jordan was born. I worked 12-hour days while studying at night. I learned accounting, finance, administration, all on my own while raising a child alone. Victoria stared at her plate. I climbed from secretary to assistant to coordinator to manager to director. Took 20 years. And you know how much I earn now? Silence. $40,000 a month. Every month for almost 20 years. That's nearly $10 million in gross income over my career. Not counting investments, bonuses, or company stock. The silence was absolute. Jordan dropped his fork. Natasha's eyes went wide. Richard frowned in disbelief. Victoria froze, mouth slightly open. 40,000, I repeated. I'm regional director of operations for a multinational corporation. I oversee 5 countries. I manage budgets of hundreds of millions. Jordan was pale. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? I looked at him tenderly. Because you didn't need to know, son. I wanted you to value effort, not money. I wanted you to become a person, not an heir. Natasha whispered, then why do you live in that small apartment? Why wear simple clothes? I smiled. Because I don't need to impress anyone. True wealth isn't shown off. The more you have, the less you need to prove it. I looked at Victoria. That's why I came dressed like this tonight. I pretended to be poor. I wanted to see how you'd treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colors. And I saw them perfectly. Victoria was red with shame and rage. This is ridiculous. Is it? I stood up. Let me tell you something no one's ever told you. Money doesn't buy class. It doesn't buy real education or empathy. You have money, perhaps a lot, but you don't have an ounce of what truly matters. Victoria stood furious. You lied. You deceived us. I didn't make you look like fools, I replied coldly. You did that yourselves. I just gave you the opportunity to show who you are. Natasha had tears in her eyes. Mother-in-law, I didn't know. You didn't know about my money, I interrupted. But you knew how your parents treat people they consider inferior. And you did nothing. The waiter approached timidly with the check. Victoria still held the menu, trembling. I pulled out a black platinum card and dropped it on the table. This is my corporate card. Unlimited limit. Pay for dinner with a generous tip. Consider it a gift from a broke, naive mother. Victoria stared at the card like it was a snake. Black, shiny, with my name engraved. Diana Sterling, Regional Director. I don't need your money, she said, voice broken. I know, I replied. But I didn't need your pity either. Yet you offered it all evening. Take it as a lesson in courtesy, something you clearly didn't learn despite all your European travels. Richard tried to pay, but both his cards were declined. I calmly pulled out another card, transparent metal. A Centurion card. American Express exclusive, I said. Minimum annual spending of $250,000. The waiter processed it immediately. Thank you, Miss Sterling. I stood to leave. The dinner was delicious. Thank you for showing me exactly who you are. You saved me future disappointments. Victoria's voice trembled. This doesn't end here. You're right, I smiled. We'll see each other at birthdays and holidays. But now you'll remember this night every time. You'll remember that the poor woman you scorned has more than you'll ever have. And I'm not talking about money. Jordan walked me outside. The cool night air felt like freedom. Mom, are you okay? He asked. Perfectly fine. Better than ever. 3 days later, Natasha came to my apartment. No makeup, simple clothes, vulnerable and real. I came to apologize, she said. And to learn. I want to understand how to live with dignity. How to be wealthy without proving it. I smiled. You can't learn that from me, Natasha. You learn it by living. By making mistakes. By staying true to yourself. We talked for an hour. She left lighter, freer, with hope in her eyes. That night, I sat by my window watching the sunset paint the sky. I realized something fundamental. Real wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about peace. Authenticity. Genuine relationships. Pride when you look in the mirror. Victoria and Richard had millions. But I had this. Tranquility, truth, pure love for my son. And that made me infinitely richer than them. I never pretended to be poor again. I didn't need to. I had learned everything I needed to know.